Soldiers, sailors, airmen and women enlist in the armed forces for many reasons, including a sense of duty, patriotism, the adventure, travel, and adrenaline. When service members are injured or wounded and can no longer perform their military duties, they quickly find themselves removed from their team, no longer serving the purpose for which they trained.
I came back from Afghanistan in 2013, and it was kind of a trial and error of finding out, after the military, what's next in life.
Motorsports offers an opportunity to regain that sense of identity within a safe, fast-paced team environment, providing a renewed sense of purpose. Like in the military, in motorsports the goal is in accomplishing the mission, winning as a team, collectively celebrating the successes and supporting teammates through the losses. Operation Motorsport also offers virtual engagements and recovery opportunities through an iRacing league, engaging beneficiaries in a safe, competitive environment from the comfort and safety of their home. Operation Motorsport believes in the power of team, identity, and purpose.
Hello, this is Jason with Operation Motorsport. We'd like to introduce you to some of our beneficiaries who were active during the GT World Challenge SRO race at New Orleans Motorsport Park this past weekend.
This weekend I've been over here with Race Control, and it's basically been seeing behind the curtain, like the Wizard of Oz kind of thing, kind of get to peek behind the curtain, see all the stuff that's actually happening, and what makes all these things on the track actually work. Essential thing, and it is like being in a TOC, a Tactical Operations Center, in a deployment scenario, surprisingly. So you're in there and all these screens, all this activity, things are going 100 miles an hour, and everybody is juggling 7 things at once. Whenever there's any sort of race event, whether it's just laps that people are doing or if it is an incident that's happening during a race or something like that, all of the things that happen that we see manifest themselves in terms of a race. These are things, and these are all the people who are pulling the strings and pulling the levers to make it all happen. So Operation Motorsport is all about having a team identity and purpose, and kind of restoring that for people who left the military like myself and no longer really have that sort of source for that. And this is a way to this has been a way for me to reinvigorate that kind of same part of me that otherwise I don't really get. It doesn't really scratch that itch. But it's meant a lot. It's meant a great deal to me to actually be able to kind of activate that part of my own brain and that part of my own self that otherwise is just kind of going dormant.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to Podium Esports coverage of the 6th round of the 6th season of the Operation E Motorsport iRacing League live from iRacing's virtual Sonoma Raceway in Sonoma, California. I'm your host, Rachel Wyford, joined by my colleague in the booth tonight, Rodney Campbell, and our producer for this evening, Gary Sexton. Gary is using cameras created by the great Dougie Beard. Welcome back to this series, of course, folks, supporting veterans in both the US and Canada with motorsport activities to help them in their rehabilitation. Operation Motorsport is a veteran-led and operated not-for-profit foundation based in Raleigh, North Carolina and Brighton, Ontario, serving, as I said, both American and Canadian service members and veterans. Its programs are based on 3 simple core values: team, identity, and purpose. Opmo supports recovery and medically retired and retiring service members affected by their military service in motorsport activities. Their motto is one at a time. Rodney, tell us a little bit about Sonoma Raceway, where we find ourselves tonight. Weird enough, for some reason I got into my head we were going to be here at NASCAR cars, but we're not. It's the usual GT fair, and this track definitely is a bit tougher for cars that are not quite as tough.
Yes, for sure. This is an interesting course here in California, just outside of Sonoma, or the Napa Valley. It has a lot of elevation change, as you can see on the track here. I think there's over 150 feet of elevation change. There's some corners where they're downhill, there's some corners where they're uphill, there's some corners where the peak of the hill is right in the middle of the corner. So it presents some challenges to the drivers here tonight, especially when you're trying to pass a driver in a slower car, like we have the GT3s and the GT4s out here tonight, and the GT3s will definitely be doing some lapping through the GT4 traffic. It's a very narrow course in spots, very wide in other spots, and it has a good variety, but it is a tough technical course in the GT3 cars, and it'll be a good challenge here for our drivers tonight.
Certainly is, and speaking of those different classes, we'll talk you through those now. Now, we technically have 4 here, but they're technically 3. We have the Pro class. They are competition license holders, both past and present, in IMSA, SRO, CTC, or other sanctioning bodies, or iRacers with a road rating over 1900. Now, this is split into 2 types. These are the GT3 cars, and they include the Pros and Pro beneficiaries. Those guys are marked with the PBN, and those are beneficiaries of Operation Motorsport who are fast enough to be running with the Pros. Behind them, the GT4 cars include both the beneficiaries and the open drivers. The beneficiaries are enrolled in Operation Motorsport programs, and their coverage is supported by iRacing and the USO of North Carolina. Now, we also have the open category. Now, they are serving military, they are veterans not involved in Operation Motorsport programs, and they are staff, volunteers, or supporters of Operation Motorsport. So those 2 classes, or 2 groups of cars, I should say, and 4 classes will make things interesting for us tonight, of course. It's difficult to really pick apart the Pro beneficiaries from the Pros, really, Rodney. Both are just as quick, I'd say. And when it comes down to our guys who are, of course, running in the GT4s, again, very difficult to kind of separate them out in terms of speed. They basically are running in an overall speed order within their classes.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, Matt Smotherman, our points leader in the Pro class, is a beneficiary as well, but he is leading the series so far, and he's had a number of wins under his belt, and he's looking to get another one here tonight, I think.
We'll have to see what he can do. He is very, very fast. And Matt has won all the rounds so far for our Pro beneficiaries, so he's been very, very strong tonight. We've also had Greg Meismer, for the beneficiaries, who's been our winner in that class all season so far. So it's been very telling. And we'll have to see how this one does play forward. The Marines, by the way, are winning that unofficial inter-service championship so far over the Army, a distant second with only 6 points compared to the Marines 13. And the Air Force are in third with 5. Behind them, the Navy has 2 points on the board. And the Space Force is on -5 and the Coast Guard's on 0, which is like a life ring, which they love. No, obviously we're getting qualifying through here, and times are going on the board, and things are looking pretty typical for what we expect here. Smotherman, Guillemette, Walsh, Wallace, Elliott, Nelson, Andrews, Stiffel, Stacey, Albano, for the moment for our GT3s. And GT4 is Parisi, Meismer, Milaranio, Santana, Winker, Haslett, Ayotte, Smith, and Whitfield. Slightly smaller field
Yep.
tonight. We've got 20 cars on overall for this one, and I think that'll actually be good at a track like this. It's so confined, it'll be difficult.
Yes, and they've had an hour of practice, and now they're getting 4 laps to qualify for the race, so they'll be familiar with the track here, and we'll be ready to go once the qualifying is over here. Another about 5 minutes to go.
We certainly will. Guys are having some trouble coming out of 2, which is one of the trickiest corners on this track, I think, overall. When you're in a pack, the last corner can be difficult, but I think here, 2 is the tricky one in a crowd. That always tends to result in problems, even in real life. I think in every racing series I've seen run at Sonoma, the crest at turn 2 up that hill, there's a nightmare.
Yes, the car unloads big time as you come across. The crest of the hill is right in the middle of the corner, and you've got to be slow enough so that the car doesn't lighten up and just fly off on the outside of it, which can happen if you because your eyes play tricks on you with the elevation here, and you think you can take that corner a lot faster than you actually can because the track just falls away from you when you get up to the top.
It's also one of those places where I don't want to be in a crowd because I don't trust people. My own personal experience has told me being in a pack of cars going through 2 on lap 1 is unpleasant. I'd like to either be at the very back of the field or the very front, just for my own sanity and safety, because it can get real messy on that one. As long as people are careful, though, it will be manageable. Of course, when you're racing that last corner through the stadium section, really, Rodney, can be one of the trickiest ones. What is NASCAR turn 11, and I believe it's turn 17 in this layout?
Yes, and it's a nice tight hairpin, and it's probably one of the more technical corners on the course, and the slowest corner on the course, but you've got to get around that corner and set up for the straight for the start finish, and races have been won and lost there at that corner for sure.
They have indeed. Well, time is running down here. We've got a few moments left on the qualifying session. By the looks of things, about 3 minutes. So we'll get this session completed and we'll get ourselves off to the racetrack itself. Our beneficiary spotlight tonight will be for Brian Knight, old Papa Knight of the two of them, as we used to call him before he was the only Knight in the series. We'll cover him more later on in the broadcast, of course. And he is, as always, driving one of the USO cars, which is their bomber livery, which would be great to see. Although he might be in a Tiger tonight. I'm not sure if we updated that information. But he is driving one of the USO cars, I can tell you that. But either way, we'll be getting more on that as we get later in this broadcast. This track definitely does create some intricate difficulties, of course, just with it being a very dusty circuit as well, Rodney. There's a lot of ability to transfer muck onto this track from the sides, mistakes, people repeatedly going through a corner. That will make getting offline to pass lap traffic hard.
Yes, and certainly if you put your tires off the track, it can be deadly here because it's just sort of dusty dirt, very slippery, and can turn your car pretty quick. So the key here is to keep the car on the track and on the racing surface, and definitely when you're passing cars, got to be mindful of where the track runs out because we have a number of narrow sections and wider sections, and the wider sections turn to narrow sections, etc. So you've got to be aware of where that track runs out, and especially on the outside of some of those uphill corners like corner 2. We can see Joe Stifel here putting his Tiger striped GT3 Porsche through the paces here, and you can just see the long winding carousel down onto the old drag strip part, which is one of the wider part of the tracks here.
Yeah, it certainly is. That's a great part of this track, and you will see a definite change in how the cars handle dropping down from that carousel into the drag strip. There's difference in grade and also grip between the different types of surface there. And of course they enter the NASCAR portion for the rest of the circuit there. This infield section we have onto the drag strip is only really present in the road races we see here for GT cars and other classes. We don't see that for the NASCAR layout, of course. They continue down to the end of that slope and turn at the very end, do a short shoot before joining the rest of this circuit. So we add this portion. It makes things a little bit more interesting, I think. It gives us some more ability to drive, and I'm not confident of turn 2 here. I'm seeing a lot of cars backwards at the top of turn 2.
Yes, for sure. They need to get that sorted out before the race starts here, for sure. And we're seeing Joe do what so many cars do as well here on the, I guess I call it like the mini back straight here before the hairpin, is a very fast right-hand corner that you can get on the outside and you just get your tires in the grass or in the dirt in this case, and your car is spun and into the wall. Not a lot of big runoffs here. It's not a Formula One type track. It's the walls are pretty tight and close. It's almost many sections of it are almost like a road racing course.
They are indeed, and we're getting ready for our grid now as time has run out. Let's go through your running order for tonight's race. It's a short pace lap. We'll get this done quickly. Matt Smotherman leads us off for the Pro Ben class there with Chris Walsh for the pros in second. Martin Wallace of the pros is in third. Tyler Gimlet in fourth from the pro beneficiaries with Joe Stiffel, Ed Nelson, Jesse Elliott from the pros, Scott Andrews from the pro beneficiaries, Nate Stacey from the pros, as is Gabriel Albano. Behind them, we have Connor Parisi for the beneficiaries with Greg Meismer. We also have Nick Melarano for the open class with Rick Haslett and Brian Winker. We have Matt Ayotte from the beneficiaries, Kyle Smith for open, Elliot Whitfield for beneficiaries, Felipe Carrillo for the open, and Steve Santana behind them. Well, this short pace lap will take us through this last little twisty section here, then through the final corners. I believe this is 12 corners, not 17, although I've seen that number somewhere else before. I'm always positive it's actually 17. But the math at American circuits and corner naming conventions is very strange, and I don't agree with it. So it could probably be at least 17.
Yeah, there's a couple of corners that have 3 and 3A and 8 and AA that add up to corners as well, but they're considered one corner. Yeah, they're starting here in the sort of the 8 complex where you can see that traffic weaves. It's a very fast part of the course here, again, where you've got to keep the car on the track.
You do indeed, and we're getting ourselves ready to get going here tonight. This short run down here through what is really 3 corners. It's a bugbear for me, I'm afraid. Look at Road America, where we have turn 2 is a slight kink in the track that isn't actually a corner. But here, 3 distinct corners are 1 corner. I mean, who's judging? I'm not judging at all. No, that's not something that I'm going to be going on about. In fact, I'll shut up now because we want to watch racing. Pace car's off. We're getting through the final corner here, and we'll get our field lined up. The GT3s under Smotherman and Walsh. Come out the final corner. Little bit of jostling as we get ready to go. Come to that final kink to the start-finish line, and they go. Big jump by Smotherman. He gets the head start. He wants to be single file for this run up the hill. They all do. It is far more beneficial to the drivers to do just that. We'll hope everyone makes it through here clean on colder tyres. No major issues. Everyone takes it gently. The GT4s are going as well behind it. Oh, we have people round. That is going to be Jesse Elliott who went round there, looking to our GT4s behind them. They're coming up now as well. Elliott got a bit of a low tap, but he's continuing going now. GT4s almost sedately and serenely through turn 1 and 2.
Yes, everybody's well behaved here to start the race and falling into single file. A little bit of jostling amongst the GT3 cars, but it looks like Jesse's car wasn't damaged in that and he's able to carry on. But you can see here as they come around turn 1 and into turn 2 how tight it gets here at the top of the hill.
It absolutely does. And Chris Walsh is all over the rear end of Matt Smotherman. He wants to change the story in this race, I think, and try and get something different. Elliott there, we've got it recovered, of course. He's trying to regain time now, but gotta say, Walsh losing a little bit of gap on the faster sections, closer in the tighter sections here, Rodney. Does seem to be his strength. Looking back behind him, it's a big launch there by Parisi. He's holding that lead well so far. Behind him, it is Meismer in second, following very closely. In fact, no, he's got a car that split the difference here. Melarano's jumped him and is going after the leader.
Yes, lots of jostling going on here early. It's important to get track position because this course is so hard to pass on especially with the equality we have here amongst all the drivers in the different classes.
We certainly do. Coming back through the first corners for the second time. With 30 minutes race tonight, of course, we will have pit stops. The drivers will have to come down pit road for at least a fuel splash to continue to the end of the race here. So that will have to bear into their strategy. It's a difficult pit road here because you have a very long segment where you're on throttle but not in the boxes, where you have to come round the outside of that whole final corner.
Yes, and very narrow pit entrance too, with the walls on the outside. And we've seen in past races where people have overcooked the entrance and ended up into the wall because it is not a pit. You're not on the pit limiter there until you're around the whole corner, which makes you want to try and take it as fast as you can. But with the wall on the outside, it can be dangerous.
Absolutely can, and well, everyone's making it clean so far. No major issues. Good, solid running by most of our field here. The gap is open between Smotherman and Walsh at the front. That is now approaching 0.8 of a second on the racetrack. Parisi holding off Meloranio, but Meismer has caught back up to the rear of that grouping, and he's going to be challenging that open class leader right now.
Yeah, like a good train going here of cars in the GT4 class, and I think at this point they're just sizing each other up here and waiting for that opportunity to pounce.
They are indeed. We'll keep our eyes on how this is going. Big split towards the front end of your GT3s. Guillemet's really just about hanging with the top three there of Smotherman, Walsh and Wallace. But behind him is a big gap to Nelson and Stifel, then Nate Stacey, Elliott and Albano. Those guys have jumbled up a little bit here. We have got our first pitter, that is Scott Andrews from the Pro Beneficiaries. Not sure what happened to him. Can you take a look for us, Rodney, and tell us why he's on pit road so early for such a long time? I believe there could be an issue with that one. And I believe Nate Stacey, by the way, is apparently an IMSA driver. Oh god, we talked about him. It happened. Sorry. Yeah, so Nate Stacey, who was an IMSA driver, had an issue. He just spun.
Yes. Yeah, sorry, here's a replay of Scott here, and here he is in this very fast section again. I think he goes a little bit wide here. Oops, we missed it. But Scott had an off track into the wall.
We should see that happening here in a moment. As they'll come up here through this first corner. It's the place we expect for danger. And cooks it, off he goes, and wow, that was a big hit. Holy tamales, Batman, that was a bit rough.
Yeah, that's what you can happen with that turn one up the hill there, is your car's unloading as it goes up the hill, and he just got it turned around, and once you get to the top, if you're sideways, there's nothing you can do. And here we see Nate Stacey spinning it in the carousel. Again, another long sweeping left-hand corner downhill where the car is unloading. You have to be very careful, and the rear of the car can get very loose.
We've got retirements from Scott Andrews, Nate Stacey there at the moment from the pros and pro beneficiaries, unfortunately for them. Elliot Whitfield, beneficiary there off track. He's regaining himself. We'll see what happens if he can get himself going again and rejoin this thing. But we'll get back to our live coverage here. Parisi is still holding off Meloranio and Meismer, although Meloranio did make a mistake exiting 2 there. He's trying to catch up, and I think he's pushing quite hard at the moment. He's really clobbering those curbs.
Yeah, so far it looks like the track is winning here with some of these drivers tonight.
It absolutely is. As we'll keep our eyes here on this fight at the top of the GT4s. The two beneficiaries and one open driver here, and it's almost side by side there between Meismer and Meloranio as they come down the drag strip. Definitely close here. He's going for a big dive to the outside, try and carry some speed here, holding him honest. Not quite close enough to go back, but we can see he's definitely got the speed, I think.
Yeah, it looks like he's got the speed to catch up to him at the corner, but getting off the corner and by is going to be a different story.
Certainly is, and can be quite a tricky situation for those drivers. But the gap is just helping Conor Parisi here. He's opening that gap up and making a little bit of time, which will be beneficial to his chances. At the sharp end, Smotherman has not been released by Chris Walsh. Walsh is keeping him very honest, as is Wallace behind them. And I gotta say, Chris Walsh is looking very fast tonight.
Yeah, I think he's trying to reverse, and the way it's been going so far, he's been following the tailpipes of Matt Smotherman for the majority of the series here, and I think he wants to try and make a statement here and get the win. May come down to pit stops, so we've seen in the past how pit stops have played a role in some of the finishes here in these races. If you can't beat him on the track, sometimes you can beat him in the pits, and that's always the plan B. So we'll see what Chris does here, whether he comes in early and tries to get out in some clear traffic and maybe get some better laps in and come out in front of Matt, or maybe the other way around. We've seen Matt come in early before as well.
Yeah, we've seen that work very well. Looking back to the GT4 leaders, it's really tight now. And we've got a very, very angry Greg Meismer there. He's flashing headlights. He's digging his nose in. He wants through here on Melorano. He wants to go after Conor Parisi. And he feels like he's being held up, I think. He doesn't look impressed as they get their way down here. And this is definitely going to be an interesting fight when this throws down.
Yeah, he's definitely been held up here, and Connor is stretching out the lead. Here we go, and a little bit of off track there by Melorano, and Meisner was able to get by him, and so now he's got Connor in his sight, and see if he can catch up to him here and put some pressure on him. Sometimes if you stay, sometimes you stay close behind and be all over the rear end of somebody's bumper. It makes them nervous and makes them make a mistake, and you take advantage of that mistake to get the position.
Well, Melorano came back at him and gave him a little tap in 9-10 as the gap is broadening. Not hugely yet, but he's definitely coming after Parisi the way this is looking, so we could see a big fight here for the lead of this one very soon. You are right, those sort of gaps are very important, but we've seen a big drop-off here by Walsh. He's dropped way back. We've got a replay of what happened to Wallace, too. He's slow. Uh-oh. We didn't get a good view of that, but he did a whoopsie.
It looks like he was passing a lap car and maybe got a little too wide on the course there and spun out.
I think that could explain our gap with Walsh as well. I think lap traffic is already starting to play a factor in this race tonight. We're only 7 laps in. We're 10 minutes down. And the lap traffic is being a big component. Again, this is not a track designed for, or really intended for multi-class racing, so there's really one groove, but it's not exactly a lot of offline opportunities for drivers to take advantage of, so it could be difficult for them for sure. Now, Meismer, and we've got a car on pit road here, but Meismer and Parisi are very close. Greg is coming for that number 1 spot in class, and he's coming on strong. We've got light flashing from both cars as they're both telling each other to go away.
Yes, I'm not sure if that does much, but it certainly plays into the psyche of the car in front. Let's have somebody in behind you flashing their lights. So Greg's all over his rear bumper here. He's got to get the pass done cleanly.
I have to say, I think Conor Parisi made a good call here. He's driving the Mercedes. I have my only Sonoma win in a Mercedes. They are a great car on this track. They are quite an understeery car at the best of times compared to the other GT vehicles. But the Mercedes has that stiffness with the front engine, lets you use these curbs. And it's probably one of the few cars that can use these curbs to its advantage and get on them. You can clobber curbs and use them to help you rotate, almost like the stock cars do in the racing circuits like this. You'll see them getting on the curbing and using it to help loosen them up and help them rotate. Well, the Mercedes can take advantage of that too, and it does very, very well at Sonoma. That thing will go very, very quickly if you drive aggressively with it, and that is what Conor Parisi is doing. But Meismer behind him, well, he thinks that Aston Martin should be faster.
Yeah, both of them are great cars, big front-engine cars that you can use that weight displacement on the front to help turn the cars for sure, either the curbs or your brakes. Both these guys are very quick, and Connor is out in front, and he's not going to give up that position easily to Greg. Those guys have been fighting tooth and nail all season long here, and it's not going to be an easy pass for Greg here, so he needs to bide his time here and wait for his spots. Now you can see that Nick has caught up to him now, and there's a train of 3 cars here, 1, 2, 3, that are all fighting for position and waiting for somebody to make a mistake and be able to slip by.
Yeah, they absolutely are, and one who's looking very hard is Melorano. He wants to come back into this fight, and he's looking for the openings now. The gap is closed between Parisi and Meismer, of course, but not as much as I expected to with the overhead he seemed to have. And now we've got Melorano coming back. This could really gum these works up here. If we have these two fighting constantly, Parisi will run. He will go up into the sunset. And speaking of running, 2.2 seconds for Smotherman. Yeah, he's cleared off again, like he does.
Yeah, it looks like some lap traffic got caught up with Chris, and he lost a bunch of time there. Again, maybe pit strategy might help him here, depending on where he is in lap traffic.
Yeah, certainly is. Well, keep our eyes on this grouping, but looking across the line here.
Yeah, we can see some of the cars coming in already for early pit stops.
I think it's quite early. That's the 5 we have there. That's Tyler Glamet, who's normally one of our top bringers in that GT3 field. So he's come down early. He's down the list a fair bit, but he has pitted, of course. And his pit box was after the line, so that will have affected his positioning on the scoring. We'll see where he filters through, of course, in the end. Always quite quick in that Lamborghini, so we'll have to see what he can do with it. But at the moment, we're starting to see that sequence open. We have this middle 10 minutes of the race where that will occur, of course. And speaking of which, we're going to use this opportunity to take a look at our beneficiary spotlight tonight. It's a big one, because this guy has a humongous history with the military. Tonight's beneficiary spotlight is Brian Knight. We've commented on him in many races. He's a wonderful guy, and he does, of course, drive the USO liveries. Well, Brian Knight, where do we start? He enlisted in the US Army in February 1995 as an infantryman, where he then went on to attend 1 Station Unit Training and Basic Airborne School at Fort Benning. He's held all leadership positions from team leader to command sergeant major, which I believe was his exit rank. CSM Knight had assignments with the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th Battalions of the 325th Airborne Infantry at Fort Bragg, 1st Battalion of the 501st Parachute Infantry Regiment, and 3rd Battalion of the 509th. This guy's been everywhere. He spent 3 years at Fort Jackson in South Carolina as a drill sergeant, and his final assignment was the CSM for 1st Squadron 73rd Cavalry Regiment at Fort Bragg. His deployments include Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Unified Response in Haiti, Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan, Operation New Dawn in Iraq, and Operation Inherent Resolve in Iraq as well. This boy's been everywhere. It gets better. His awards and decorations include, and this is a list here, the Legion of Merit, 3 Bronze Stars, 3 Meritorious Service Medals, 6 Army Commendation Medals, Meritorious Unit Citations, Army Superior Unit Award, Army Good Conduct Medal with 7 knots, National Defense Service Medal. He's got Service Medal, or Tour Medals, I should say, and Deployment Medals for Afghanistan, Iraq, Global War on Terror. He's got the Armed Forces Service Medal, Humanitarian Service Medal, Army Service Ribbon, Overseas Service Ribbon. I think he's those guys you see in the memes with every single decoration. Usually they're dictators or from these, podunk countries where some leader has assigned themselves a medal for going to the bathroom that morning. Only this guy earned them all. I'm pretty sure he's made up his entire body armor from medals and citations. This guy has a really impressive career with the military. CSM Knight, he works currently for a non-profit organization that takes care of service members and their families. He's married to his wife Heather, and together they have 3 children, Branning, Cameron, and Evan. Thank you for your service, CSM Knight. What a heck of a career.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for his service. And I see that he's sporting a great beard as well.
Oh yes, definitely. I will say, Mr. Knight sounds like the kinds of CSMs that terrified me back in the day. Because as a junior officer, those were the guys who knew absolutely more than you, knew it, and wanted you to know it too. They were often wonderful people, but they were terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. They were the heart and soul of any unit, for sure.
Absolutely. And by the way, we have Meloranio in pit road here. He's taking this opportunity to pit as Matt Smotherman will pass our... no, it's not Matt Smotherman, sorry. That is a lap car being passed by your GT4 leaders. But we have Meloranio heading down pit road, hoping this will get him clean air to get past these two for the GT4 lead. But we do have Parisi and Meisman still out on track racing. Good call by Meloranio, I think, to split the difference on this one and try and get an opportunity.
Yeah, he was a trailing car on that train of 3 cars, so I think the best chance for him to gain a position maybe is to have a quick pit stop and then come out through the cycle in front of these guys, but he's got to put some good laps in with clean traffic as he comes out of the pits. And we can still see that the Meismer and Parisi are still fighting tooth and nail, and that might help Millerano. If these guys are fighting, they may not be as fast, and maybe he can gain some time on the track here. So as we cycle through the pit stops, we'll have to see how it turns out. Matt Sutherland, our leader's already been in the pits in the GT3s, and he's off, still in the lead, and still got about a 5-second lead on the Chris Walsh.
Yeah, absolutely does. That's a big gap there that he's made, and it just seems to always increase. Once he makes that initial break, you think someone's going to hold with him, and then he just vanishes. There's something about Matt Smotherman that is absolutely unbeatable so far. And we're seeing a good, strong run, of course, from Parisi and Meismer, but Meismer's lost a bit of time here. So as we're looking at what we have now, 11 minutes, 12 minutes left on the clock. We've got a wobble there from Meismer. He's struggling for grip, I think.
Yeah, it looks like he overcooked it in the hairpin turn 11. Yeah, he's pushing hard on the car, and then maybe pushing a little bit too hard here, and overcooking some of these corners here. Definitely got to be careful through this part of the track. If you've cooked your tires, you want to have all the grip you can up on the top of the hill here as you climb the hill to the very highest part of the track here, and then it's all downhill from here.
We'll have to see if we can try and regain some of his time and catch up, because he might let him run away like Matt Smotherman ran away from Chris Walsh, which is going to make this a bit of a different race for us. Oh, we have a car exiting off the track. That was a lap-down vehicle, I believe, there. I think that was Brian Winker. It was on the entry there to the infield area. He went wide. And we had Elliot Whitfield off as well from P8. Getting quite spicy out there on the track. The thing is, the temperatures aren't that bad. We've got 77... Oh, that was contact that caused that one, so that will explain that. But we have very cloudy conditions here. It's about 77 Fahrenheit in the air, 80 degrees on the track. 2 miles an hour winds are very low. 30% humidity, which is also pretty low. So I think it's the cloudy conditions that's affecting us the most in this one, Rodney. Is one of the most, I think, underrated and most important factors in iRacing, the skybox. That sounds kind of fourth wall meta compared to what people understand from racing, but the sky conditions to help you understand better, whether it's clear, whether it's very bright on the track, whether it's dull, cloudy, will have a humongous impact on how the track handles, and will dictate, no matter what the temperature and pressures, largely how grippy it is.
Yeah, for sure. When the sun comes out, the track heats up, and you start losing grip. Almost ideal conditions here with the cloudy conditions, cool track. They should have the most grip for these conditions, and so there's no real excuses here. But then, as we say that, the sun starts to peek its way out through on parts of the tracks, which can, as you mentioned, impact the grip. And you've been driving around in the cloudy conditions, and then all of a sudden the sun comes out and it changes that track temperature. And if you're not aware of it, it can certainly come up and bite you.
Yeah, very much can. So we're seeing some pit stops here from a few of these guys that had incidents. Meismer there is chasing down. He's not. Actually, he is, yes. No. Parisi's made a bigger gap now. Parisi's got a huge launch. I think we've had an issue there for Meismer, Greg. He's very far back.
Yeah, Meisner, I think, pitted, so you can see that Millerano came out in front of him through the pit cycle, so that worked out for him, and Connor is yet to pit, so he'll probably be pitting here pretty quick.
I think that definitely is telling that the pit stop could be a big difference in this race.
In fact, here he comes into the pits right now. So we'll see as he comes out of the pits here where he's going to fit into this train of three cars. We saw that Nick Millerano has already made up a position through the pit stop cycle. Let's see if Connor can keep the lead here. A long, agonizing pit lane to get to your pit stall. But he had quite a bit of a lead here, so I think he should come out ahead unless there's a miscalculation on fuel. And here he is. Meismer's coming down the front straight here. Oh,
little close there with. In fact, it is his friend there with the 117 of Maranio, and they're passing already. They're duking this for position, and it might be Meismer. In fact, it is Meismer who will take that spot in turn 2. Very well passed. No real battle there from Maranio.
No, he had the position on the inside, and he made it stick and got the position back. So Nick's back to back where he was before the pit cycle. And while all this is happening, Connor has stretched out a lead here of a few seconds.
Yeah, he absolutely has, and that would be huge for him, of course, in this race. But they're closer than we thought, so the pit cycle might be interesting to see where he comes out when he does come down pit road. But we'll have to see.
No, all these cars have come through the pits already.
Conor Parisi hasn't, though.
Yeah, he just came out.
Did he? Oh.
Yep.
I am
Just
blind and stupid.
He just popped out in front of these guys when they were fighting for position, so we kind of missed it there. But he did come out in front of them and has a good lead.
I do apologise, folks. I am, as I mentioned, blind and stupid. But you try juggling 20 cars and try and notice what every one of them is doing at once. Wait, that's my job. Sorry, that's better. No, it can get a little busy sometimes on the racetrack when there's a lot of things happening. But some of the gap right now is about 4.6 seconds over Walsh. So they've got some lap cars between them there. Seems like Matt's dealing with lap traffic a lot better than Chris. That's what really caused the gap to start with. And then we have Nelson behind them. Still, Stiffel's up to the 4th spot. Guillemette in 5th. Elliott, Albano. And then we have Parisi leading the way for your GT4s for the beneficiaries. Meismer is there in 2nd. The gap is pretty big. It's looking pretty strong for the Air Force and Conor Parisi right now.
Yeah, he's got a good lead here, and he's got to bring it home with a little, about 4 or 5 minutes left in the race. Now it's time to bring it home in one piece. You can see the sun shining through the windows of the cars here is also going to be a factor here, especially as they come down that back straight towards the hairpin. As the sun sets, it's going to be glaring in their eyes and could cause some visibility issues here in the last few minutes.
People underestimate how big a deal that is actually on racetrack, because you might not think it, but sometimes your braking marker might be a shadow that you didn't realize was a shadow, and when the light changes significantly, that can throw that completely off. I remember calling a race at, I think it was Le Mans, and we had Greg Hindo on, and we were talking about shadows the entire time. A lot of even the real world guys that something that big screw up and use shadows as markers sometimes, so it's a very commonly done thing because you can't always tell what's what at speed, so it ends up becoming quite interesting. But we're seeing this battle still playing out here with Meismer and Maranio. They don't want to give it up, and the open class leader still wants to get past him.
Yeah, for sure. Nick's still pressing, and we're watching, I guess, Tyler Guillemette and Joe Stiffel here in the GT3 cars. Joe's been holding off Tyler here for quite a while now, and he needs to carry on keeping it clean and keeping Tyler behind him. Tyler's pressing pretty hard here in the Lambo.
Certainly is, and he's really, really working on that one. We'll see if he can make it through there on Stiffel, try and make a spot up there, get into top 4 for tonight's race. Of course, he started in 4th, so he'd like to try and get past Stiffel, who started in 5th. That'll reset their positions to grid order if he can do that.
Yep, for sure, and some pride on the line here as well. They want to be... Looks like we might have had some issues with Ed Nelson there. He had just let those guys go by pretty quick.
Yeah, certainly has, and we'll see what we'll keep if we can recover that one. But we'll keep notice on Stiffel and Guillemette. They've opened the gap a little bit, but Meismer and Maranio are still super close here as well.
Yeah, that's certainly a race for the podium here. 2 podium spots, 2nd and 3rd place here. Nick had closed in quite a bit here, but is now starting to. Greg is starting to open up a bit of a gap.
Yeah, definitely has. It's open to safety range, I think, here, but it's not entirely enough because we've seen Nick come back from bigger gaps here with that battle. So we'll keep our eyes as that one plays onwards. Guillemet's back up on Stifel, though, so it's getting a bit closer.
Yeah, he's trying to force the issue here, so we'll see with the waning laps of the race here. We must be getting close to the white flag here in another lap or two.
Yeah, that Lamborghini's really trying to push things. We've got a little bit of time left, 2 minutes 30. We'll see how that plays out. It's looking strong for Smotherman, 5.7 seconds. He's pulled that gap on Walsh. Walsh still struggling to get through those lap cars, so we'll see him get through there as he can. Parisi's gap is also very, very strong, about 5 seconds as well over Meismer and Maranhão. Right now, Meismer's holding that gap in good fashion. We'll update you if that does change. I think our closest one is Guillemette and Stifel. Guillemette, oh, had his nose inside! We'll get the camera to have a quick look at that one in the final corner. I'll show you what just happened between those two. We'll throw this back a moment and show you the replay there, but it was nearly an incident. You'll see them coming in here to the final corner, turn 12, because they can't count, and it's behind into the corner. Then Stifel wobbles, loses some time, and you see his bumper hooks inside the rear corner as he kind of chops him off there. We get a little angry flashing. It's the one thing I find hilarious about racers, and the passive-aggressive light flashing at each other.
Yeah, Joe had position on him on the inside there. He tried to tuck it in late in the corner, but it looks like Joe's car got a little bit loose there as well, and luckily they both drove away from it in one piece and didn't take each other out.
Indeed. We'll keep looking at some of these. The gaps just keep opening up. Every time we think, oh, they're too close, it's going to be a fight, they start to separate out again, and we can say the same about Maranhão and Meismer again. They've closed that gap, but Maranhão seems to be able to get there, just not sure what to do when he does. It's like a teenage boy on his first date. He's arrived, he knows what he wants to do, but closing is more difficult.
Yeah, and Matt just took the white flag here, so we're on the last lap here as we watch Matt up through the corners, 1, 2, 3 for the last time.
Indeed. Through he'll come. A great run here by Smotherman in his usual fashion. This man knows how to drive a race car.
Yeah,
Conor Parisi, we think we'll get one more lap, I think. I don't know. Yes, he will, because he'll cross the line before Smotherman does, so we'll see another lap for the GT4s. Smotherman going through the carousel right now. Parisi is through the 8 complex.
Yep, a clinic put on here by Matt tonight. He certainly ran smooth and ran clean, and has been rewarded with the win, although I shouldn't jinx him here because we're not quite done yet, the lap yet.
No, still lots to go here. Smotherman, though, through the 8-9 complex now. For the last time in this race, the time has hit 0. He will catch a checkered flag this time by. Last time through turn 12 for Matt Smotherman, the pro beneficiary driver here. Last time through that corner. And he will take the flag in our GT3 field and for the pro beneficiaries. And then behind him, Conor Parisi coming down towards the carousel. His last lap for himself as with Meismer and Maranhão. Meismer's gap has gotten bigger. He looks pretty safe over Maranhão right now.
Yeah, it looks like things are spread out here amongst the GT4 cars. It's funny that they were racing nose to tail for a good portion of the race, but then towards the end here, seemed to... Conor seemed to have the pace to leave those guys behind in the dust and set up a good pace here as he comes to the line. Greg had nothing for him here tonight.
Yeah, very much so. Really had a great race amongst those guys tonight. And he's managed to pull that gap now to a good safe range here. But we'll see Conor coming down through 9. And then towards that final corner here. Well, second to last technically is a kink. But it doesn't really count. If you can get through this corner, 11, safely, you will make the final corner no problems. If you're leading there, it's not going to be passed, really. We've never seen it happen. And across the line will come Conor Parisi and for the US Air Force to take the win for the GT4s and for the beneficiaries. Greg Meismer coming through as well for second place overall in that grouping and third overall, but winner for the open class, Nick Maranhão. Rick Haslett coming through the final corners now. This has been a pretty good race. I've enjoyed this one.
Yeah, Sonoma always provides good racing here. It's an exciting track that can provide some exciting racing with cars either getting in the dirt or drivers trying to make passes, and we saw a bit of everything here tonight. So it's been exciting.
Certainly has been. Well, we'll cut to a quick little break, and we'll be back with your post-race results and interviews, so go nowhere. Welcome back to the post-race show here for Operation Motorsports round number 6 at Sonoma. Our post-race results are as follows. Matt Smotherman takes the win overall and for the Pro beneficiaries, with Chris Walsh technically winning the Pro class second overall. Tyler Glamet is third with Joe Stiffel, Jesse Elliott, Gabriel Albano, with Martin Wallace at Nelson, Nate Stacey, Scott Andrews, and Felipe Carrillo. For the GT4s, beneficiary winners Conor Parisi with second place, Greg Meismer, third place, Matt Ayotte, fourth place at Elliot Whitfield. And for the open class, we have winner Nick Marano with Rick Haslett in second, Steve Santana third, Carl Smith in fourth, Brian Winker fifth. And we go to our first interviews. So I think we have Mr. Smotherman here. We'll have Mr. Matt Smotherman's weekly interview at this point, because should we just book you a seat at this point, Matt?
Certainly not.
Great race tonight. You and Chris were once again super close, then you seemed to find the NOS switch and went full Fast and Furious at 47 gears. Explain.
I think that it all came down to tires at the end of it. I honestly thought that I was going to have a lot more trouble as the race went on, because there were a couple sections like turn 1 and then the kink toward the end where the back end of the Porsche just really wants to go sliding around and can kill you if you're not paying attention. And I thought that had a legitimate chance of biting me. But I think, I know Chris said something about his tires being at 40% in the fronts by the end of the race. So like it sounds like his car was just chewing those tires up. And I think that was the reason why it split apart.
We saw the sky conditions changing so much during this race. Was that a factor tonight, do you think?
It actually, well, for me, I don't want to say it was a huge factor, but it surprised me. There was I think it was a turn 4 coming up that hill and coming over the right-hand side. Like there were at least 2 or 3 laps there where you're just blinded by the sunset. And I was like, oh, I can't see anymore. And you had to rely entirely on muscle memory and timing.
That's always a huge problem when it comes to racing. So at least you managed to find the way to the end of the race. How are you seeing the rest of the season playing out then?
Well, I think what do we have? Long Beach next. I like that track. We'll see how it actually treats me. That can be really dicey with mixed company as far as having multi-class traffic. And then I think we finish off at VIR with a makeup race there, I think. And I don't know. I mean, hopefully it'll turn out well. I like to say that it's going to turn out well. I try to be an optimist, but you never know. I mean, Chris, Tyler, and everyone else in the field at any point in time really can pull away with this one. It's a matter of luck of the draw with the traffic, and also just who shows up that evening.
Certainly is. Well, thanks for joining us, Matt. Anybody like to shout out to or thank?
Shout out to my younger brother Mason, who hasn't been able to join us all season and probably isn't going to be able to. So I feel his pain. But shout out to Mason if he's watching.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, Matt Smother, and we'll hopefully see you again next week. We probably will.
All right, thank you.
Come on, Chris, you got to beat him now. Well, we don't have our winner from the beneficiaries, but we do have second place, which is Greg Meismer, and he is standing by with Rodney Campbell.
Hi, Greg. How are you tonight?
Great. How are you guys?
Excellent. And we saw some pretty close racing between top three GT4 cars here tonight. You and Nick Millerano were certainly having a battle there, and maybe that cost you trying to catch up to Connor at some point.
It did in the beginning. I think I eventually caught up to Connor after I got around Nick because he made a little mistake getting off into the dirt. And yeah. It was a good fight though. It was probably the best fight I've had all season.
Yeah, we actually caught a nice shot of you making your pass on Nick just as Connor was coming out of the pits ahead of you guys. You made a nice move on the inside coming up on through turn 1 and 2. So and you made it stick. So that was a nice move.
That one made me feel good. That was an exciting pass to make for sure.
Next week we're off to Long Beach, which is a bit of a different course, same state, but definitely a different course. And what do you feel about your chances of that course?
I feel pretty good about it. I've driven it a lot in the past in more downforce cars, but I think that the GT4 it ought to be pretty fun.
Excellent. We're looking forward to seeing you next week there. And do you have anybody you want to shout out to and thank?
Just you guys at Podium, everybody at Opmo for putting all this wonderful season together, and again, just like every week, Kyle and Martin from ZFG, they motivate me a lot. So, thanks, guys.
Excellent. Congratulations on your second place finish here tonight, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Well, last but not least, we have Matt out here tonight. Can we have third in the beneficiaries, Matt? How was the racing for you tonight?
Hey, Rachel. It went pretty all right. I felt pretty confident with it. I gave it my all. We pushed hard, and I tried to use as much of the track as possible and push towards. But Gregory and Connor, they just put the pace down so much that the gap was there. I was hoping that their little 3-car battle was going to hold them up enough that I could catch up, but it didn't play out that way. But I'm pretty happy. I put a lot out there, and I got some pretty good times. I think I threw in a 37 something in there, so pretty happy with that.
Well, it was a very, very strong performance regardless. Looking forward to Long Beach?
Long Beach, that last turn, that's one I really got to practice a lot. That hairpin at the end, it just getting those cars to rotate. I think I'm going to have to play with my brake bias mid-race to make that happen, which is a new skill to develop. But overall, the rest of the track flows really nice. So as long as I can nail down that last turn, I think Long Beach should be a pretty good show.
Awesome. We'll look forward to seeing a great performance next week then. Anybody like to give a shout out to or thank?
I just want to thank the other beneficiaries that are coming out and racing. They provide a good challenge and a good personal motivation to keep pushing forward. We start seeing a lot of the gents there coming out. They're doing endurance racing now, and our endurance team is growing and pushing. And so we got some big ones coming up here in May. So it'll be really nice to see those guys come out and start. It's a good team. There's more talking. There's more um, communication amongst them. You start using the other team members as spotters. It's an all around great event to do those endurance races.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Coming in third place of the beneficiaries, Matt Ayotte.
Thank you very much.
Well, folks, that's all we have time for tonight. Thank you to the series partners of Operation Motorsport iRacing League, iRacing, and the USO of North Carolina. For Jason Leach, Diesel Loader, Chris Ramirez, and the entire Operation Motorsport team, for Ryan Bauer, Gary Sexton, John Theodore at Podium Esports, camera builder Dougie Beard, our producer Gary Sexton, Cameron Obernon on social media, and for my colleague this evening, Rodney Campbell. I'm your host, Rachel Whiteford. Thank you so much for watching tonight's broadcast of the Operation eMotorsport iRacing League, and we wish you a good night.